Good morning. Audi A3 In the first category described, the Audi A3 8V does at least very well, if not excellently. There is, however, a serious caveat here. Such a description applies to well-maintained and accident-free cars, while a significant portion of them on the secondary market are powdered post-accident cars, so caution is advisable. With the optimistic assumption that the Audi A3 8V has not had any serious adventures, typical faults include problems with the operation of external LED lighting, it flashes or goes out completely. Noisy sunroof. Creaky retractable multimedia screen in early models. Freezing, unresponsive multimedia system. Above-average battery power consumption. Noisy air conditioning system. The problem may be a faulty expansion valve. Problems with the operation of the front passenger airbag. A service campaign was carried out. The case concerns cars manufactured between June 30th and November 15, 2014. In cars manufactured between the 20th of May and the 2nd of September 2018, the rear headrests may be defective. In this case, the A3 should also take part in a service campaign, which involves replacing the entire rear seat backrests. You will admit that this is not much, especially since, as I have mentioned many times in this series, the term typical fault does not necessarily mean that a given car will definitely have one. The risk is simply slightly greater. The Audi A3 8V also doesn't have many problems in this area, but you can find something. The most commonly reported problems include squeaking or grinding noises from the steering column, creaking and rattling front suspension. The first fault is related to a damaged module located under the steering wheel, the one from which the light or wiper levers come out. It can be replaced by yourself if you have some manual skills. The second issue, according to the Haynes Guide, is not even a manufacturer's fault, but rather a fault of service technicians who, when replacing shock absorbers, incorrectly install the bump stops. Repair involves removing the shock absorbers, correctly installing the bump stops, and reinstalling the shock absorbers. Any remaining unwanted suspension noises are more likely to be more worn models with higher mileage. In addition, models manufactured in August 2017 may have defective rear wheel hubs. In extreme cases, the wheel may fall off. In this case too, the cars are subject to a service campaign. The following spark ignition engines were used in the third-generation Audi A3. 1.0 TFSI, 115 HP, with Euro 6 emission standard, from 8/2018 as 30 TFSI with Euro 6 D-Temp AF ISC standard. 1.2 TFSI, 105 HP with Euro 5 or 110 HP with Euro 6. 1.4 TFSI, from 116 to 150 HP, depending on the version, Euro 5 or Euro 6 standard. In the 150 HP Ultra version, there was a function of temporary shutdown of two cylinders, COD, cylinder on demand. 1.4 TFSI G-Tron, 110 HP, natural gas version Euro 6. e-tron/40 e-tron, plug-in hybrid with 1.4 TFSI engine, system power 204 HP, initially Euro 6 standard, after facelift Euro 6 DISC. 1.5 TFSI, 150 HP, also in the facelift version 35 TFSI, Euro 6 standard, after facelift Euro 6 D-Temp EVAP ISC. 30 grams Tron, 1.5 TFSI with 131 horsepower. CNG-powered variant, meeting the Euro 6 D-Temp EVAP ISC standard. 1.8 TFSI, 180 HP, until 2013 Euro 5, later Euro 6. 2.0 TFSI, from 190 to 310 HP, with the 300 and 310 HP variants only in the Audi S3. Euro 6 standards, or, in the facelift 40 TFSI, and S3, Euro 6 D-Temp EVAP ISC. 2.5 TFSI, only in 3 rupees, 367 or 400 horsepower, Euro 6 or Euro 6 D-Temp EVAP ISC standards. All 1.0 and 1.4 engines belong to the EA211 series, while the 1.5 is the modernized EA211 Evo. The 1.8 and 2.0 are EA888 General 3, and the 2.5 is EA855, and from August 2017, EA855 Evo. There were plenty of engines, as you can see. Are there any that we should be particularly concerned about? No, not at all. It is worth mentioning mainly problems with the valve timing adjusters in the 1.2 TFSI, up to 2015, oil and coolant leaks, the latter especially from the water pump in the 1.0 TFSI, sometimes a worn multi-ribbed belt or timing belt makes noise. The 1.8 and 2.0 TFSI engines belong to a series that, in principle, no longer has problems with oil consumption. It would be an exaggeration to say that it does not lose anything at all, but this consumption is within completely acceptable limits. The 2.5 TFSI is also a very successful unit. If it has any problems, it is mainly with the timing chain tensioner or ignition coils. The following diesel engines were used in this generation of the Audi A3. 1.6 TDI, from 105 to 116 HP, after facelift only is 116 HP 30 TDI. Emission standard, from Euro 5 for the 105 HP version to Euro 6 D-Temp EVAP ISC for the 30 TDI. 2.0 TDI, 150 or 184 HP, after facelift as 35 or 40 TDI. Emission standards, from Euro 5 for the 2.0 TDI 150 HP to 2014 up to Euro 6 D-Temp EVAP ISC for the 35 and 40 TDI. Regardless of the year and power version, all 1.6 and 2.0 TDI engines belong to the EA288 series. All versions are worth recommending, although 1.6 is considered more sensitive to fuel quality. In addition, failures may concern the particulate filter, mainly in older cars, the coolant pump, or the head gasket. In 2.0 TDI, the risk of failure of the timing belt tensioner is slightly higher. It is worth noting that in the case of both petrol and diesel engines, the manufacturer allowed oil changes in the long life mode. This is not a big problem if the car was driven almost exclusively on the road, but in other cases, it is recommended to change it at most once a year or every 15,000 kilometers, or more often if the operating conditions were far from optimal. The following transmission types were available in the Audi A3 8V. 6-speed manual, standard for all versions except e-tron, 2.0 TFSI and 40 TFSI, 30 grams tron, S3 Cabriolet and 3 rupees. 6-speed double-clutch gearbox, DSG, standard on e-trons, optional on all 2.0 TDI until 2017, and in the S3 until 2016, as well as for the 1.8 TFSI Quattro. 7-speed double-clutch, standard on the 2.0 TFSI and 40 TFSI, and on the 3 rupees, option for all EA211 engines, and for the pre-facelift 1.5 TFSI Quad, as well as for the 1.8 TFSI FWD, and for the Audi S3 from 2016. Depending on the engine version, the double-clutch gearboxes used are DQ200 7-speed, DQ250 6-speed, DQ381 7-speed, and DQ500 7-speed. The last two types withstand the greatest loads, but they were used only in top petrol engines and, from May 2017, in 2.0 diesels. Hybrids use the DQ400 gearbox. Like the DQ381 and DQ500, it is a gearbox with wet clutches. Generally speaking, DSG gearboxes are not and never have been paragons of durability, especially those with dry clutches, such as the DQ200. Regular oil changes help considerably, yes, and the dry DQ200 as well, but used car buyers must reckon with the fact that sooner or later, they will need expensive servicing. In manual transmissions, bearings sometimes give out. There are basically no problems with the drive system. This also applies to cars with four-wheel drive, Quattro. The Audi A3 8V is not a model that will forgive savings on service. It is too modern and complicated for that, which can simply backfire on the stingy, overly thrifty user. However, if someone does not plan to save in this way, they will most likely enjoy relatively trouble-free operation. Well, at least if they choose a car without a DSG gearbox, which is the most risky element here, especially without a service history. And if you know of any common errors, your comments are welcome.